Chapter 13. First Exams. 18th hour, 16th day, 2nd month, year 807, post-Heavenfall. He killed him? Ray asked in Elven, raising his eyebrows in mild disbelief. Ariya nodded before taking a few large gulps of her ale, thankful for its strength and bitterness. Her father had returned to Ovyliax for business and had invited her to dinner. Specialising in Nixioni cuisine, the restaurant was a mix of stonemasonry and exposed brass pipelines, clockwork and cogwheels designed to mimic the holds of the region. Height-adjustable stools using hydraulics accommodated sophonts of various sizes, while every table had an embedded fire pit where different cuts of fatty meat sizzled over charcoal. Ray, having grown tired of the fine dining experiences of Sunglory Keep, suggested this establishment. I'm sorry you had to see that. Some Sentinels are much more hasty in administering justice than others. Regardless, I don't think it's right to execute a man who has already surrendered. It all happened so quickly, Ariya said mournfully, shaking her head in denial. I wanted to say something in protest and suggest that the Sentinel take him alive, but I just froze in the moment. Ray reached forward with a pair of tongs and served slices of caramelized pork to his daughter. It's never easy to speak out against your superiors, especially when you feel like you have so much to learn. It also doesn't help that your advisor sounds like a very intimidating man. Still, no one is perfect, especially not 5th-class Sentinels. You should still speak your mind if you feel something is wrong, and he may heed your judgment. Ariya deftly picked up the pieces of meat with chopsticks. What should I do if they don't? Check and understand if their reasoning is sound and justified. If it is, don't take it personally and learn. Otherwise, maybe seek a different advisor or take solace that their position is only temporary. Ariya sighed. If only doing the latter was easier to do. I wish Valeria was still leading our group. I'm sure the Sentinels had good intentions about why you've been assigned Dodak. He sounds effective for teaching combat skills, and you've gained a lot of valuable experience. If seeing people killed is supposed to be part of that experience, then it's something I sure gain plenty of, Ariya replied flatly. Ray stared at his daughter's glum demeanour with concern. You have been through an incredible amount in a very short period. I wish I could have been by your side as these shocking events unfolded. Ariya dipped the meat into the mushroom sauce and slowly chewed. They both remained quiet and contemplative for a minute, as the cacophony of busy restaurant ambience filled the silence. Eventually, she opened up with another question. How do you do it? Ray swallowed a mouthful and set his chopsticks down. My best advice is to never process trauma alone. Always remember that your peers are likely feeling similar emotions, and even the ones who are already familiar with these situations will still need support. Talk it out as much as you can and listen to what they say. Your mum and I wouldn't be the people we are today if we didn't have each other or our comrades to turn to. Hopefully, there are also services at the Academy that can put your mind at ease. There are. Father Garma has offered counselling and meditations, which I'll take advantage of. Her father nodded in approval. Learning new skills while maintaining your physical health is important, but you must also tend to your psyche as well. Arc comes from the willpower of your mind, after all. Another thing to try is to focus on what you did right rather than what you could have done differently. Personally, I'm really proud you've improved at being able to channel Arc. Eventually, you might give me a proper challenge when we spar again. Ariya felt a rush of joy from his commendation and grinned bashfully. By the way, how's the new sword working out? Ray wondered with much enthusiasm. I've yet to actually use it. Her father frowned. Is it not working out in the field? I thought it has been made it to the exact specifications that would fit your needs. Ariya shook her head. No, it's not that. Are you worried about wear and tear? It's not that either. It's more that I haven't found myself in the circumstance to use it. They still train us with practice weapons at the academy. How did you defeat those elementals? Your bare hands? His daughter gave a small giggle. Sorry, I imagined bare hands for a moment there. Ray let out a snort while picturing his wife rolling her eyes. No, the spear commander handed me a mace and told me it was more suitable for cracking their armor. Why? The majority of earth elementals are made of soft mud and dirt, while any stones it incorporates are usually thin window dressing. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to bet my life on being wrong. Well, there is virtue in being better safe than sorry. You still managed to subdue those elementals, so I'm relieved your training kept you safe. They paused their conversations for a moment to take the food off the grill and eat. As Ariya savoured a thin slice of beef brisket, a thought suddenly dawned on her. By the way, she began, have you heard of the Night Mother? Night Mother? Ray mumbled with his mouth full. I can't say I have. It's some kind of urban legend about a spellcasting serial killer who died and haunts a house in the city. Supposedly, she might still be cursing anyone who enters. Isn't that a plotline to a play we saw? The one about the vengeful spirit in the attic? Similar, but this one is apparently real. Ray made a small sound conveying his curiosity as he shoveled rice into his mouth. Do you know of any entities that put their prey to sleep before killing them, in a way that looks like a natural death? Ariya inquired. Apparently, that's how the Night Mother operated. She also might have been able to move incorporeally too. Her father paused to search among the vast gallery of memories. Besides someone who uses sleeping drafts, I can think of some out there that do it innately. Ether spiders, ghosts, wraiths, hags, banshees, geists, and many more. You'd have to narrow it down somehow. Is this something you're investigating? Ariya thought on how to respond, considering the sensitive nature of how the Sentinels handled the case. On the other hand, her father was a master intelligence officer, so any attempt of deception would likely be seen through. It's a project I've been assigned to, she answered. I'd be very careful how close you look. Entities that can turn incorporeal are often extremely dangerous. I understand. I'm just researching. Either way, there's still too many out there, and I wasn't the one who kept a bestiary or encyclopedia on creatures. That was more your mum's hobby. She would tell how to best defeat something, and I followed her instructions. I can ask her about this Night Mother when I return, and maybe she might know something. That would be really helpful, Ariya responded with gratitude, and the two of them continued their meal. The discussions flowed on as the servers continued to present ingredients ready to be grilled. Throughout the evening, their conversations encompassed a diverse spectrum of subjects, spanning from political matters to Ray's intriguing past escapades, insightful lessons extracted from experiences, and even their immediate aspirations. Amidst their dialogues, they seamlessly transitioned into contemplative silences and savoured the intricate profiles of their culinary delights and beverages. The passage of time became imperceptible, and several hours passed since they initially took their seats, leaving them satiated and their minds slightly fogged from alcohol. As they neared the end of their dinner, Ariya's mood suddenly shifted to bittersweet as she remembered he would be leaving soon. I wish you could have stayed longer. I do as well. Yet the Queen and her ministers need me in Eden, and your mum also wants me back more than they do. We'll see each other soon, I promise. When it's the summer holiday, I'll arrange to fly you home by airship. She smiled at the pleasant thought before shifting topics. So, has the War Council finally concluded? This phase of it has. I can't tell you everything, but the Hegemony will muster and call upon the banners to join. We've also convinced some of the northern nations to join as allies. It took a lot of wrangling and teeth pulling through. A hint of worry surfaced in the daughter's complexion. Will you be joining the war? Ray shook his head. So far, no. But there's always a chance our Gladstalkers could be called in to support. After all, Grand Councillor Marikoff has volunteered to lead Eden Valia's detachments. Her father smirked. Even after all these centuries, he's still chasing glory. After Ray paid for the meal, the two of them headed out to the streets, towards the nearest Skytram station. Ariya would be riding the tram west, to the upper tier of Ovyliax, while her father headed in a different direction to go to the airship field. Before departing, Ray had prepared a couple of gifts. See this ring here? He pointed to an onyx band on his pinky, crafted the shape of swirls to resemble smoke. Observe what happens when I take it off. Upon pulling the accessory off, an illusion veiling her father was vacuumed into the jewellery, and his attire immediately changed. Where he previously wore loose silk robes and trousers, was now replaced by an armoured coat and pants of midnight leather. 2 swords were sheathed at his side, as opposed to earlier, when he appeared unarmed and unassuming. This is a discretion ring, he handed the item over to Ariya. Many Edenvalian Gladstalkers use them to hide their weapons and armour to appear inconspicuous. It won't hold up against a keen eye or an arcanist who can detect illusions, but it'll get the job done under most circumstances. The next time you're in front of a mirror with normal clothes, you can hold the ring up and have it store an illusion of your outfit. Ray then reached inside his coat pocket to produce a small gift box the size of his palm. I also wanted you to have this. Ariya unsealed the lid of the present and saw that it held a smooth, dark blue stone, etched with the sigil of her family. The logo featured the side profile of a panther's head, surrounded by a backdrop of a coiling phoenix to represent the unity between the Ilyani family of her father and the Malantis of her mother. Tiny gems were fitted in the eyes of each animal. "It's lovely!" Ariya exclaimed. "It's not just a pretty paperweight. Hold it up to your ear and give it a strong squeeze." She did as instructed and immediately gasped in surprise when she heard a familiar woman's voice say, "Well done." "I heard Mom." "Try it again," Ray said, grinning in delight. She compressed the stone once more, and this time it was her father's voice saying, "Good job." "It's a stone of encouragement," Ray commented. "Your mum and I spent a whole day recording a ton of lines to help with whenever you're having a rough time or miss us." Esbin also added some phrases of his own, although I can't tell if the old lich is talking to you or the sword he crafted. "I'll be using this every day, thank you." Ariya immediately hugged her father firmly, who returned the embrace even more tightly. They remained intertwined in each other's arms for a moment, until hearing the whine of the Skytram approaching. "Looks like your transport is here," Ray said with some melancholy. "Stay in touch, please. We'll see each other soon." The vehicle slowed the whirring of its machinery and applied brakes to the cables as it neared the station. Once it had come to a complete stop, the boarding doors swung open and 6 passengers exited. "Train well and be safe. Good luck on your exams. I love you, little angel." Ray bade farewell as his daughter embarked the Skytram. "I love you too, Dad," she replied. Ariya took her seat and continued waving through the windows as the vehicle's helmsman pulled the doors close to set the craft forward. Both father and daughter's eyes remained locked onto one another until the Skytram moved further out and their faces were no longer in sight. Except for those instances when her parents entrusted her to Esbin or her extended family while pursuing their own journeys and escapades, they had consistently stayed in close proximity, either a few steps away or within a teleportation circle's reach. Soon, Ray would once again be over 1,000 miles away, on the other side of the Hegemony, and Ariya's heart sank with homesickness. She pulled the stone up to her ear and squeezed it once more. The week leading up to the first exam period was a frenzy of cramming and practicing drills. From timing how fast she could pick a lock to identifying strengths and weaknesses in security standards, Ariya had to prove her aptitude as a rogue. Studying was thankfully not a lonesome affair, and her colleagues shored up topics she needed assistance in. When time afforded, she and Zarin perused through articles and encyclopedia entries of different creatures utilising the methodologies of the Night Mother. Despite narrowing down to sentient entities of higher intelligence, she had yet to find an exact match and hadn't even begun to research possible spells. The process was slow going, but Zarin proved helpful in parsing information and keeping her company. He tried his best to find time to aid Ariya's research, and his helpfulness proved true up until the current week, when he noticeably looked more fatigued. "My nights have not been restful," Zarin mentioned as they sat together in the library. There were bags under his eyes, and he lounged lazily over the study table. "Ever since we survived that house, I keep having terrible nightmares, and they've been getting more frequent as of late too. It's almost to the point where I don't want to sleep."
Ariya made a look of worry.
"Have you spoken to one of the apothecaries for aid?"
"I have. They gave me a draft to help me relax, yet the results have been mixed."
"I figured this is post-traumatic stress, and I've also visited counselling services numerous times. It's strange because I'm fine during the day, and I don't have trouble falling asleep, but I never wake up feeling rested. Have you had similar issues?" "Not so much during the night as much as during the day. I sometimes feel apprehensive when I remember the incident. However, elves don't dream like most sophonts, so I mostly use sleep to reflect and study previous memories."
"Must be nice to have that ability."
"Unfortunately, the part of my mind that controls dreams inherited the human side rather than the elven." Zarin began to rub his eyes in mild frustration. "I'm not sure how much of this book I can take. The words are starting to jumble, and I'm starting to get several entities confused. Maybe we should bring someone else in for help. Emtak, Chin, or someone better versed at Arcana."
"Probably.
We should check with Sentinel Valeria since this is extracurricular. Have you heard from her?"
She shook her head. "Not in a while."
Zarin made a sound of affirmation as he wearily closed his eyes and rested his head on top of the table. Seeing her colleague past his mental limit, Ariya continued to conduct research without him. Unfortunately, her concern was proving to be distracting, as all she could do was hope his health would improve soon. The first exam period began with defensive dueling and had each student sparring against 3 animated mannequins. Sentinel Shaylin not only judged their techniques, but also their efficiency as he timed how long it would take for one side to come out triumphant. Despite the onslaught, Ariya was able to hold out long enough to discover a means of exploiting an advantage through fencing feints and ripostes to quickly disable them. Shaylin grinned with approval and repeated the same, "You're pretty good," from the first class. Marksmanship was significantly more complex and involved 2 phases. Candidates met at a forest just outside the city and were ordered to craft bows from saplings with simple tools and string. Sentinel Dane suggested they divide the work into an assembly line, to which Ariya volunteered to help peel the wood of imperfections and bark, while others worked on roughing and tillering it to shape. Once everyone had access to their own bow, a hunt began, and they all set off into the thicket to independently find game. Cooler temperatures, clear skies, and low winds made it easier for Ariya to perceive animal sounds, especially during mating season. As the sun was on the cusp of setting, she returned to her instructor with a dead turkey and thanked him for the lesson on mimicking bird calls. The exam for history of team tactics and leadership was the only non-kinetic one. Students were to answer 2 essay questions about the benefits and disadvantages of the checkerboard battle formation and what mistakes General Kalaros committed during the ill-fated charge of Audi Fields. Although Ariya had strained to be attentive to the lectures, she was able to recall information from other sources, such as her museum work experiences, textbooks, and study sessions. The results of her essay were satisfactory to the instructing Sentinel, and it also helped that he was regarded as an easy grader. Last of the arduous week was urban infiltration, where each candidate was to retrieve an object from a practice compound. Given 10 minutes to decode a cipher for revealing the location of their target, each would take turns trying to steal the objective on their own. Figuring out the cipher was not required, but made the primary task much easier against a 20-minute time limit. As part of the challenge, doors within the compound would be locked, and candidates from other classes have volunteered to act as patrols. If they were tagged by the roaming guards, the exam would end prematurely in failure for the test taker.
Ariya was able to solve the coded cipher just shy of the time limit and learned the room number where her item was located.
Infiltrating the facility and avoiding patrols was of little problem. However, a major impediment occurred when her lockpick broke right before she could enter the final room. With the clock nearing the cutoff, Ariya decided to gamble her fate and risk discovery by sneaking up to the nearest patrolman and pickpocketing the key. To everyone's astonishment, the maneuver was successful, and she was able to break into the room, retrieve a paintbrush, and exfiltrate with less than 2 minutes left. Results of her exams were released the following week, and Ariya was relieved to see that she had passed with flying colours. To her mild surprise, the scores from Urban Infiltration also came with a note to review the copy of Trilly Moon Edge's Field Manual to Lockpicking, which Valeria had placed on hold at the library. Considering her recent mishap with the kit, Ariya understood it as a valid criticism and decided to do as suggested.
Upon checking out the book, Ariya flipped through the pages and was perplexed by a piece of paper nested in between. She thought it had belonged to the previous borrower, but was startled to discover it had Valeria's handwriting.
Ariya and Zarin.
I noticed you two are continuing with your research into the Night Mother and wanted to provide an update.
From the evidence and interviews with her previous victims' families, I've learned a few things and narrowed down the possibilities of what she could be. However, I'd like to confirm if you can come up with the same conclusion.
You're missing the arc pattern report, and I wish I could provide it, but it's under Father Garma's care.
He'll be leaving for a conclave on the night of the 2nd of the 3rd month, and it would be the best time to try to peek in his office for it. I wish I could do it myself, but I also have matters to attend to.
I believe in you, Ariya.
Considering how high you scored on the infiltration exam, if you are unable to do this, tell the librarian you would like to cancel the hold. Otherwise, keep the book, and once you have the results, bring it to me with your notes inside. The 2nd of the 3rd month was tomorrow, and Ariya was astounded by the boldness of Valeria's request. She stood motionlessly for a long moment and wondered if and how she could accomplish such a mission. Unlike the exams, there would be no opportunity to retry upon failure. Being caught trespassing would result in expulsion at best, or a fate as far as incarceration.
Yet as she remained in place and pursed her lips, Coley's lifeless face flashed in her mind, along with the news articles accounting the terror the Night Mother had wrought. With the book firmly in her hand, she left the library. When Ariya returned to the dormitories, she saw one of the housekeepers had stopped a cart of food and tea in front of Zarin's room. From the times she had stayed up late in the common room, the elf recognised the worker as the same one who tidied the area at the dead of night. Considering how often she overheard the housekeeper bitterly muttering about the younger generation, Ariya usually chose to keep her distance. "Good evening. Is he still not feeling well?" she cautiously asked.
Zarin's fatigue had not improved, and he even began to miss classes after exams were over.
"No," the housekeeper said tersely.
"If he felt better, I wouldn't still be delivering all this food. Besides, you're the one training to be a Sentinel. You should be able to piece the two together."
"I'll visit him another time,"
Ariya responded with brevity to avoid verbal conflict. As she walked down the hall, an impulsive and silly idea dawned on her mind as she decided to risk pushing the boundaries on the housekeeper's patience.
"Sorry, my room isn't too far. Could you wait a moment for me to deliver him something with the meal?"
Ariya dashed away and returned with the owl beast plush tucked between her arms. "He'll understand," she said. while gently placing the toy down on the cart.
"Aren't you too old to be playing with these things?" Yuli Elston scowled unimpressively before turning away to knock on Zaren's door.